President Assad says support for ISIS passes through Turkey in cooperation with the Saudis and Qataris. And an American senator says U.S. planned since 2011 to stabilize certain governments in the Middle East, especially Syria. The Syrian Arab Army destroys terrorist hideouts in several areas. Good afternoon, this is news in English from the Syrian Arab television in Damascus. President Bashar al-Assad stressed that all forms of support for the terrorist organizations of ISIS pass through Turkey in cooperation with the Saudis and Qataris who make up the backyard of ISIS, and that this force of the extremist organizations come from Turkey with personal support of Erdogan and Davut Oglu themselves. President Assad said in an interview with the Chinese Phoenix station that there was no timetable for eliminating terrorism because it is not just about the progress on the ground but the support received by terrorists from other countries. Because many of the Western and region countries have no interest in a political solution, as they believe only in supporting terrorists to overthrow the Syrian government. So they want to prolong the crisis and do not have the will to combat terrorism. President Assad pointed out that the Syrian government and state main objective is to work for the benefit of the Syrian people, which will respond to any good proposal, explaining that the most important for the Syrians is that the constitution and order in the country in general is secular, which guarantees freedom of religion and accommodates everyone under the Syrian umbrella, stressing that no concrete political steps can be taken before the elimination of terrorism, which is the biggest concern for all Syrians. President Assad stressed the need to restore balance in the world and support the values of the United Nations Charter and correct moral decay in the Western policies, which we are paying the price for. So we are looking forward to what the Chinese people and the government will do to our world in the near and distant future. American Senator Richard Black has said that the U.S. planned to destabilize Syria since 2011 and overthrow certain regimes in the Middle East, including Syria and Syria in particular. In a special interview with Syrian TV, Black said that Saudi Arabia and Qatar are the two countries that finance terrorist organizations.
Saudi Arabia has tremendous influence with politicians around the world. They have such enormous wealth from the oil trade that they have managed to have very close relations with both Republican and Democrat administrations in the United States. The same thing applies to Great Britain and even to France. They have managed to export Wahhabism and to create this very severe, distorted image of Islam, which has triggered violence throughout the world. The funding for world terrorism comes principally from Saudi Arabia and from Qatar, but the actual base for the invasion of Syria, and most of this is an invasion. It's not simply a domestic uprising, but there are two areas of the Turkish border, one of them to the west of Kobani, and through that area, which was turned into sort of a no-fly zone, they have cleared the Kurds, and they now run thousands and thousands of armed trucks from Turkey into northern Syria, and they also provide the medical support. They send jihadists constantly through there, and then further over to the west at Latakia province, along closer to the Mediterranean. They have another gap through the Turkish border, and through that gap, they send all of the weapons to what they now call the Army of Conquest, which is based around al-Nusra and Arar al-Sham, and those groups are they've sworn their allegiance to al-Qaeda. So America is in this odd position where we talk about good terrorists and bad terrorists. ISIS, we say, are the bad terrorists, and the good terrorists are the Army of Conquest, and because of their relations with al-Qaeda, we have gone complete circle from 9/11 when we were attacked and 3,000 Americans were killed, to where today we are literally arming the same people who bombed the Twin Towers and the Pentagon on 9/11.
Syrian Air Force has destroyed terrorist headquarters at Qasr al-Halabat, Mahin, Hawarin and other areas in Homs countryside in central Syria, killing scores of the terrorists. The Syrian army also destroyed terrorist hideouts and fortifications in Hmeima, Akula and Tel Ahmar in Aleppo eastern countryside. Moreover, Syrian army units backed by Air Force have persisted in marching towards Syrian silos in Aleppo countryside after establishing control over a train station in Sheikh Ahmed and Al-Jamiliya villages east of Queris Air Base. Going to Latakia, eastern countryside, army units have controlled some areas and strategic hills to cut off routes used by terrorist organizations from and into Salma area. In international news, Russian Prime Minister Dmitry Medvedev has underlined the necessity of coordinating international efforts under the umbrella of the United Nations to combat terrorism. Delivering a speech at the summit of the Association of Southeast Asian Nations, ASEAN, held in Malaysia, Medvedev said that the danger posed by ISIS threatens Europe, America and Southeast and Central Asia, adding that taking a unified stance against terrorism in those countries where there is a huge Islamic community is the key to defeating ISIL. In the same context, United Nations Secretary General Ban Ki-moon has underscored during meeting Russian Prime Minister Dmitry Medvedev on the sidelines of the ASEAN summit that the UN was counting on Russia's crucial and pioneering role in combating terrorism. He further called upon the international community to show full solidarity and joint efforts in collective confrontation of the common enemy, which is namely ISIL and other terrorist organizations. In occupied Palestine, a Palestinian young girl was killed after an Israeli settler ran over her near Hawara checkpoint to the west of Nablus in the occupied West Bank, under allegation that she tried to stab the settler. Palestinian sources mentioned that the occupation forces shot at the young girl even after the settler ran over her. Meanwhile, another Palestinian young man was killed with the fires of a settler to the east of occupied Jerusalem under the same pretext. On the other hand, the occupation forces launched a raid and search campaign in several areas in the West Bank, arresting more than 15 Palestinian citizens. The besiege of Beit Awa village from its surroundings continued after the closure of roads with sand barriers and preventing the Palestinians from moving with cars, leaving or entering that town. Stay with us.